Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. My name is Nicholas Sacco, your host once again. This is episode 29 of season 7, or episode 202, if you're counting from the beginning. And it's that time of the year where we review the season that was. We discuss the highs and lows of 2025, talk through some of the news that has already come since our preliminary final loss, and get a brief look at what might be ahead for Collingwood in the next 6 months or so. And to help me do that, very pleased to have a full Backchat studio beside me. Marcus Callahan, Luke Humphries, Jack Dugan. I mentioned just before we started recording that you're all in the dark, grey, beige, and maybe as optimistic as we were about season 2025, that just might be the way the season panned out.
Yeah, welcome back, boys. Feels a bit strange having the Collingwood merch on, and season 2025 is all done, but what matters is we've all got a bit of black and white on us. Nico coming back into the studio. Great to reflect on a season that's been. I feel like we're very blessed to have the season 2025 that we did, gents, despite some of the disappointments that came along. But Lukey, you're in the T-shirt and shorts. Things are getting a bit warmer. Still keeping up with the Collingwood, everything Collingwood, or are you taking a back seat now that the season's gone?
No, honestly, I feel, because it's, for me, I guess the past few years, footy season is so hectic, especially with doing the podcasts, and I've actually found I completely kind of check out as soon. Like, I used to follow it all through the off season. I'd keep up to date with everything, but the last few years I've noticed I just kind of check out kind of as the season concludes, and just take a back seat and let all the other,
not a bad thing,
let all the experts continue on. And it isn't a bad thing. I think for mentally, it's just like nice to have a break from it, and not worry about who's going where, and that will all happen in time. But nice to be able to watch the grand final, enjoy that. Credit to Brisbane. That was an incredible display, particularly in the second half. And just move on and enjoy the off season. Jacko?
Yeah, unable to get in here, boys, and do the prelims wrap up and sort of sit in that emotion for a bit, which is obviously very disappointing end to our season. But as Lukey said, having the week off now, watching the grand final, actually seeing the team that we lost to in a prelim go ahead and win it in the fashion that they did, further reflection on the season and all the rest of it. Pretty content with what we're able to deliver this year. The highs were very high and the lows were very low, but we'll get into that a little bit further later on this lesson. But much like Lukey, this lesson, geez, I've got my teaching brain on at the moment.
You've really checked that out.
I swear you just said lesson.
Too much uni. We'll get to that further in this podcast. But a lot like Lukey, Nico, I'm already shifted, as you can just tell, by that bit of dialogue there from footy season to the rest of my teaching studies. So, looking forward to wrapping up the season with you boys, and looking forward to what should be a pretty cruisy summer.
So we're going to go through a whole bunch of things in this review episode. As we usually do, we'll answer a few questions that I've put to the boys about how we fared across the 2025 season. We'll also look at a couple of things that may take shape for us in the off-season. Of course, trade period has just gotten underway. There's been a lot of talk about free agency, but I thought I'd start, gents, with the Copeland Trophy, because what we did see was a little bit of a surprise in Darcy Cameron going on to win his first Copeland Trophy. 328 votes he finished on. Nick Dacos second, which there was a lot of commentary about, of course, and then Isaac Quainer rounding out the top 3. I think there's a lot of little success stories when you look at that top 10. Jamie Elliott, Harry Perryman, both inside the top 5. Ned Long finishing in 9th. Scott Pendlebury with yet another top 10 appearance. So I think all those things individually are fantastic, but wanted to get your thoughts first and foremost on DC taking out the crown.
Yeah, got to start at the top. Big congratulations to the big fella. I can't remember, maybe Brodie Grundy, the last ruckman at Collingwood to take out a Copeland Trophy. So it doesn't happen often, and I think whenever a big man gets recognition at either club level, all Australian, across the league, it needs to be noted, because it's a lot harder for these guys. There's fewer of them, and particularly good ones going around. So I really think that this accolade for DC puts him right in the top. We know that he's up there with the best with all of our bias, but this almost affirms it for me, even though it's an internal award. It does put him on that extra level, and to go from having one game to his name at the Swans and coming across and really, I guess at that time when Brodie Grundy came out of the squad, we're all thinking, geez, who are we going to turn to here? Do we have a legitimate ruckman to take this list on to bigger and better things? And Darcy Cameron was able to do that, and this really puts a stamp on his, I guess, trade being a true Blues success. If you think about his name on the premiership list from 2023 and now as a best and fairest winner. So I think a bit of disappointment there for Nick, finishing second in the BNF and also at the Brownlow, but he'll be better next year for it. And huge congrats to DC, Lukey.
Yeah, an incredible success story from, like you said, from being picked up from the Swans, and just the road he has taken at Collingwood and has paved the way with losing Grundy and the like. So incredible for him. I think the stat I seen was he's one of not many who have won a best and fairest, club best and fairest, but didn't poll a single Brownlow vote. So funny little stat that, but yeah, massive year for DC. I think most of us probably thought Nick would win it, but I think many times across the year we spoke on DC and said, he would be right up there for the Copeland. So it's sort of graded a bit differently than a sort of Brownlow voting and those kind of awards. So,
well, he finished second last year at DC in the Copeland Trophy, so he's always been recognised in that manner.
He is regarded very highly inside the four walls, and it is voted differently to how a Brownlow is voted, and it is nice to see that it's not just a midfielders award at the clubs as well. So unlucky for Nick, I don't think Fly helped him at all with his comment, particularly across social media. I don't know if you seen that.
I was watching the Copeland, but then my internet cut out at that moment. So what was the nature of the comment?
He just said something about a few more 16 disposal games might win him the Brownlow, and then that's fine. But then it was the fact that he came second in the BNF, which then
made it on his egg on. Whose face is the egg on after that comment?
So that will Fly. So they're just a pile, and then Nick cops it for doing nothing, but he's just doing
beat
nothing.
up always when it's Nick.
Yeah, so unfortunately for Nick, Brownlow second in the BNF, but an incredible year for him as well, and I think he's just a victim of the incredibly high standard that he does set for himself now. So
or to echo the boys' sentiments, Nico, I think anyone who went along to Collingwood footy games this year, we're not sitting here unlike the Brownlow where you felt like Nick might have been a little bit harshly done by. Of course, as Marcus highlighted, Lukey highlighted as well, it's sort of, it's voted on differently, and each club has their own system that they go with, and I don't think anyone that went to Collingwood games this year could say that Darcy Cameron didn't deserve to win our Copeland Trophy. He was immense all year. He's been immense for a significant amount of time now in the black and white, and it's really nice to see him get his reward for that effort. I certainly wasn't shocked by the result, but it's a little bit embarrassing when the coach gets up and gives the AFL effectively a serve, and then that player that he's pumping up, it's not like he lost by heaps either. He only lost by about 15 votes, which I think when you sort of compare that with the Brownlow, I think that'd probably be equivalent to about 2 or 3 votes in that scenario. So look, both of them had incredible years, but a deserving win at one in the end.
Yeah, and you mentioned before, Lukey, only one midfielder in the top 5. So, Darcy Cameron, midfielder, ruckman, whatever you want to call it. But Isaac Quain, a defender. Harry Perryman played most of the year in defence, and Jamie Elliott was a forward. So.
Could be something in that, Nico, I reckon, with the way we were going in the last sort of month or two. In the back half of the season. Might be something we should address in the off-season, or dare I say it.
I think particularly most clubs will be this way, but particularly with Collingwood and under Fly McRae, is that he looks elsewhere for the recognition. It's the defence that's winning us games of footy, and those things that only coaches see that not necessarily us fans and the general public are looking for. So
So speaking of non-midfielders, Jamie Elliott he spoke pretty candidly at that Copeland Trophy, and that came, of course, after he fortunately re-signed with the Pies for a further 2 years. I think we were all pretty worried about what he was going to do. The longer his situation lingered on, and fortunately for us, we're going to see him in black and white after arguably his best individual season since arriving at the club in 2013, or 2012 rather. So terrific to see that he's re-signed. I think I don't want to put it out of, what am I trying to say? I think this is a bigger signing than many people have sort of indicated. I think it was so crucial to keep someone like Jamie at the club, considering the journey that he's gone through to get to a point where he could impact a season like he had. And, of course, so much talk about his role at the club and his ability to have played so well in the twilight years of his career, and the need that we're going to have for him still over the next 2 years. It was pretty important for us to get this deal done. I think just with, again, his on-field stuff, but I think also culturally off-field, just losing someone like him in the locker room would have hurt pretty deep. Do you agree with that sentiment that it is a bigger signing than maybe it's looked at on paper?
I think there's more than just what he brings on field and is going to need to with the imminent departure of Brodie Myercheck, Nico, particularly for guys like Bobby Hill, who I feel like has a really close on-field relationship with Jamie, but they seem to gel really well off the field. Bo McCreary and then Will Hayes coming through as well. I think Jamie is now like officially the leader of that forward line if he wasn't already, and also being in the leadership group and seeing his game go to a new level with added responsibility. It's just crucial that as we see this list start to sort of at the twilight of their time together, Howie, Pendles, not so much Darcy Moore, but certainly Billy Elliott, and Sidey and these guys. Like I feel like Jamie's that key forward from that group that's really going to want to leave a strong legacy. And so for him to pass on that mantle and to finish, assumedly his career as a one club player, I think is massive. And he was just going to give the Magpie faithful, I'm sure, a few more memories that we're going to cherish in what might be a year next year that we'll get to this later on, might not have as high expectations due to the changing phase of the list, but for him to finish a one club player just feels right, Jacko.
Yeah, absolutely. I think not to be underestimated at this point is a few things. The memories that he has brought to us over the past few years, I think losing him now at this sort of phase in where we're at under the evolution of Craig McRae would have been a real big kick to the guts. I think, we've had so many great days, nights, afternoons at the footy, and lifelong memories that have come literally off Jamie Elliott's boots. So that in itself would have been really poor to lose him, as well as you mentioned, mate. I feel like his leadership, like in the AFL, is probably underrated a little bit. He's been around for a long, long time. He obviously can direct the youth coming through, but he's an important glue to having that forward line. So super stoked to see him, and not just within the four walls at Collingwood, but I think we're now seeing, if you had it previously where you see blokes like Jamie Elliott have the seasons that they have had, it's kind of seen as a bit of an anomaly. Okay, fantastic, well done. Got a bit of reward for effort for a bit of a turbulent career with injury, but across the competition, look at Jack Gunston from the Hawks, who's had a career best season, best and fairest, 70 goals. I think the game's evolving in a way that's allowing the experienced blokes to still not just have an impact from a leadership standpoint, but really impact games and the stat sheet. So I'm excited that there's probably Jamie's best footy ahead of him still, which is crazy to say, but the way the AFL landscape's panning out, who knows what could happen.
Oh, it's just so wonderful to see, and hopefully we can see that for a bit more, Lukey.
Yeah, well, I was 99.9% sure he was leaving, so I think I ended the last episode with pretty much a farewell, Jamie, all the best. For us, being the ages we are, he's been there for the last 14 years or so, it feels like. So, massive to the fabric of this football club, and loved by many. I think it was going to be a massive loss, not just on field but off field, for the club as well. So just a massive get to have, and I think just based on obviously losing a prelim and then talk of the list being an aging list and we're going to struggle next year and certain players leaving, it was just a nice little good news story, I think. And I know for me, when I seen it, I was actually shocked that he had re-signed. So I just thought business-wise, financially, he was going to finish off at the Gold Coast. But I think it is underrated how massive and what a difference it is to be a one-club player at Collingwood.
100%.
For the rest of your life, you are a one-club Collingwood player. You've got
Premiership player.
Yeah, premiership player. And for someone like him as well, compared to being someone who, finishes up at another club but, earns a bit more for the next couple of years, but, after that.
Yeah, lots of cash is coming his way.
No, I was going to say that, Nico, but no one more happy about this than the merchandise department. A lot of number 5s getting around on kids and adults' backs of jerseys, so they'll be stoked that he's staying. Plenty of funds coming through that department. And to add to Lukey's comments just there and yours, Nico, he's the sporties that he's going to enjoy over, the latter part and the retirement. There's going to be so many people that are going to come up to him and be like, I was sitting there when you did this and you did that. And being a one club player, very much goes to help that.
And I can't remember if it's at the Copeland or where I saw it, but like just looking at his highlights package, it's like, I'm not going to say it's as good as like a Dusty Martin or someone like that. It was obviously of a higher caliber player, but just the number of marks and goals and just moments over the course of his career, obviously has become known as a clutch player in more recent times, but it's top shelf. His highlights package is absolutely top shelf. But coming back to the Cashies thing, do you reckon it'll be the shortest functions of all times, given he's a man of few words? I reckon it'll be all wrapped up in about 15 minutes.
I reckon if you give him enough.
BT. Nothing at the Copeland there, Nico.
Yeah, but let's be honest. He's always going to give him
Was it Mitch Cleary he spoke to
at the
Copeland?
Yes.
I thought that was like he gave a lot then.
I was surprised how candid he was.
I reckon there was a bit of relief there for him actually being able to
but it was
speak to
refreshing to hear such openness regarding
how close it was,
contract situation, and just the fact that he was very close to making that decision to leave, and there has been times where he has really thought about it. So, but as a fan, I actually appreciate that he's giving us that insight. It makes it better that he has stayed, but
I think you have stories to tell for a little bit of cash, and then when they increase the bank account, he might go with a few more deeper ones. I reckon that's how we'll roll with Jamie. Now, with the good news of Jamie, unfortunately came the bad news of Brodie, and I think this one, once Elliott had re-signed, was sort of going to be expected, and it did come to fruition on Friday, with Checkers confirming that he will depart the club, either as an unrestricted free agent or there might be some trade moves going along depending on how that whole system works. But the reality is he's decided to explore that opportunity. He's heading to Melbourne for 2026, nearly 160 games. I mean, we talk about the story and the journey of Jamie Elliott and the resilience he had to go through. Well, we picked up Brodie Mychek as a 25-year-old key defender, hoping we could string a few games out of him after some good footy at Port Melbourne, and he's turned into a 4-5-time leading goal kicker, premiership forward. And I tweeted it when it happened, just that workhorse mentality that he brings, always kept us in games with his ability to hit the scoreboard, and will be sorely missed. I think it's a bit underrated about how much we will actually miss him in that forward line, and I feel like it's going to take a while to adjust because we played that forward structure so much around what Checkers had brought to the table, and more often than not, before a few other forwards came to the club, having to take the best defender each and every week. He's just an outstanding footballer and got absolutely everything we could out of him and more.
Lost no admirers, I think, leaving the club. It'll be hard to see him in the red and blue. It won't look quite right, and as we're used to seeing Brodie Mychek, fellas, but he is a guy that you would just have to reflect back on in 10 years ago, like, how did we get so much out of him? And it's difficult with an ageing list and experience list to lose these guys who have been a part of so many memories, and obviously goal kickers and forwards at Collingwood have been pretty hard to come by, particularly good big ones, if we can consider Brodie one of those. And so I wish him all the best, but I just do think that at this point of his career, it's less likely than likely that he'll play every game next season based on how the body's been holding up in recent seasons. And I'm sad to see him go, Nico, but I think it's a bold move by the club and probably the right one at that.
Yeah. Oh, you go. No, I was going to say, I think I agree with what you were saying just then. I feel like we definitely got the best out of him and have absolutely loved every moment we've had with Checkers. But I think I agree with the boldness of the move and just a bit of the changing of the guard in that forward line going forward, and just not 100% sure where he was going to fit into things going into next season. So all the best to him. I don't think Melbourne will get the best out of him though. So, and he won't. I don't think he'll suit those colours whatsoever.
No, not at all. It feels like, to echo the boys' sentiments again, Nico, it feels like that we have offloaded Checkers at the right time in terms of we've squeezed every bit of juice we could get out of that lemon, and he's going to go on. And look, honestly, I wish him all the best at Melbourne. I hope he does sort of find a new wind and is able to impact for them, because he deserves it. And he deserves, I think, for him, from a contract standpoint, we've been getting the best out of him in that sense as well. We've been putting him on 1 year rookie contracts, and for the workload and the stress he's put himself and his body under for us as the battering ram, all I've got to say to Brody Mychek is thank you so much for doing that, because as you said, Nico, the amount of times he would take the best defender from the other side, the amount of times you see him long down the line for no reward, whether it be a mark or a free kick, just crashing into packs time and time again. It's no surprise that, as we've seen at the latter part of this year, that his body is starting to let him down. So fingers crossed he can sort of rejuvenate himself over this summer and impact for the D's, just not on Queen's birthday. Please, Checkers, if you're listening. But thank you so much, because what he's done for us is immense from the position that he was in, and he's forever be a Collingwood player, and he'll forever be a Collingwood premiership player as well.
I can't remember exactly how many years while he was at Collingwood that he was on a rookie contract, but I'm so glad he's getting paid. Like I'm really happy.
Got to a bit of a joke by the fifth year or something.
No, it did. No, I'm stoked that he's getting that opportunity. He thoroughly deserves it. And just quietly, his goal in the 23 grand final, very underrated, because it was a match that had so many incredible highlights. But that goal in the first term, when Brisbane kicked those two back-to-back majors, very underrated moment in that grand final.
A settler.
Yes, needed it
at the moment.
But the goal itself was incredible.
The step back off a step just to snap it through. It is an iconic shot when he does kick that goal. So
made even more iconic by the fact that all the Brisbane supporters saw it as a free kick, which probably might have been against Bo McCreary. And I think I've seen a still shot of Checkers celebrating. There's just some poor bloke who breaks a bridge in the background.
Well, they've had two in a row, so they must have it.
And then there's a few more list changes to wrap up. So we had 4 players delisted in the last week, including one of our favourites, Oleg Markov. I'm sure we've got some merch somewhere maybe that we can wear in honour of him. But Ash Johnson, Finn McRae and Charlie Dean were also told that they would not have their contracts renewed. I know it's been a little bit now since, but we've spoken about it briefly in our group chat. Any of those take you by surprise, or have they all been the right calls?
On reflection, I think Charlie Dean is one that may have deserved a little bit longer, just by virtue of the stocks we have like key pillars, and not something we've had ample supply of for some time. We've managed to get by with what we've got, and I think Bill Frampton's another great example of a guy who's probably on the outer and considered probably a lesser player at his previous clubs, and has been able to come across, and we've been able to rejuvenate him and make him a better player, make him a better athlete, make him a better person. So I would have hoped that Charlie Dean might have got a little bit more of that opportunity, but based on what we saw at the level, there's probably just not quite enough evidence there to warrant a contract. And whether there's list strategy things at play, salary cap might be part of a broader play to try and bring in another big A-grade player over the next season or two, Nico, through free agency. I'm not too sure. I was just surprised, given, as I said, if one or two of our tall defenders goes down, who's coming through?
There have been a few rumours the last few days since the trade period's opened up, Nico, that we might be sort of picking up a couple of young delisted blokes from Richmond, I hear. Even one might have requested a trade coming up. So how long those conversations go on for, you don't really know, but I agree with Marcus. Charlie Dean could probably consider himself a little bit stiff.
And Finn McRae, I was a bit... It wasn't that he didn't... Yeah, he was always just someone I thought would come on, and we just kind of never got there with him. So I've heard he's potentially looking at West Coast.
Yes, he's spoken to him.
So would love to see him get a crack at it. It just felt like, although he did get opportunities, it felt like he just never got a real crack at it, a sort of consistent 5-6 game run at it. And
what do you think that was, that even if he sort of showed a bit of promise, cut his continuity?
I think his injury struggles are a big factor, and I think Charlie Dean can be put in the same category as well, which is why I feel a little bit stiff. I think I only managed the 9, 10 or 11 games at senior level, Charlie Dean.
I think, you're right. Charlie Dean's probably the most stiffest out of all of them. Felt like he probably could have had another season on the list, and there were times where we played him this year looking towards the future. But then, a few months.
Well, did we? Because I felt like it was more out of necessity than actually having to play him and having the luxury of seeing what he does bring to the team.
Once Howie and Bill Frampton both went down, he was the next one we turned to.
Had to.
I was more so coming back to, is there anything you're critical about Finn McRae on reflection? Was disposal speed or anything athletic?
Not necessarily Finn McRae, but I felt like this year or even last year when he was getting a little bit of a crack at it, I felt like it wouldn't take much for us just to pull him straight back out of the ones.
Yeah,
whoever that was, whether it was the coaches selection panel or they weren't seeing key indicators that they were asking of Finn McRae, we'll never know. But yeah, I felt like it was a time where you would like to see him get, a good month or 5 weeks, like Lukey was saying, of footy, but it would seem like he'd be in for sort of 1 week, have a bad half even against the side that he'd come up against the next week, and then the nature of being a competitive side and having a pretty stacked list of names at least that can go into that midfield. He just was a bit of a sacrificial lamb at some stages, which probably didn't help him with his continuity in his footy, and hopefully he can go to West Coast and turn it up. But fits that sort of Tyler Callum Brown mould, doesn't it, Nico? Like sort of just never quite got an opportunity, but never quite grabbed it with both hands.
We wish them all the best regardless. Hopefully they do get some opportunities.
Leggy's the other one as well. We've got to spend a bit of time talking about, didn't get a lot of opportunity towards the back end, but again, came in, got him in 23, is now a premiership player, played a role for us, and just having blokes like Oleg Markov around the club who, not only is he a pretty handy footballer on his day and came on as the sub, but he's also an exceptional human being. You can tell that with all the stuff that the club puts out, that he puts out on social media, and he'll be a big loss, I think, culturally within the four walls, and obviously wishing him all the best for the rest of his endeavours.
Yeah, and I think for Leggy, it's more we kind of did get the best out of him in terms of we got him at the right time to produce what he did in 2023 and play a huge part in that season. And then just the last couple of years, obviously in and out quite a bit on field, but always providing culturally off field. And I think that was very important, and a couple of nice moments this season as well, particularly that North Melbourne game with that goal he kicked in the celebration. So always bringing the good vibes, and I think that is an underrated thing at footy clubs as well. So shout out to Leggy, but again, he'll always be a premiership player as well.
Best Man Monday costume of all time, Nico.
Nailed
getting stuck right up the blues. So loved it.
And we'd love to have you on, so hopefully you're listening. We can get you on. All right, let's look at this season review. So as I usually do for season review episodes, I prompt the boys with a few questions that I want answered. Just a way to reflect on what the season was. And I feel like, apart from 2023, it's been one of the better years to still look back on, despite the fact that we didn't go all the way to win the premiership. So there'll be some highs, there's a couple of lows, I'm sure, but I'm keen to get your thoughts on some of these. So I'll change it up. I won't go in the same order. I'll give everyone a chance to go first, but I will start with you, Marcus, like I usually do on this occasion. So what was your best win of the year?
Yeah, I had to think about this, and I didn't want to go obvious with the final over in Adelaide. So I've gone round 12 against the Hawks.
Same here.
Yeah.
Cool. Same here. And if you do have the same one, just chime in. It's fine.
Don't go obvious, but you'll go the same one we've all picked.
I thought everyone was going to go as well.
I had that as...
Do we all have that?
I've gone different.
Okay, so the three of us have gone with that. So let's delve into that.
I thought someone was going to go to the final.
I actually didn't...
Well, again,
in retrospect, the way Adelaide went.
Out of the fact that we didn't want to be too obvious.
Yeah,
yes.
okay. We've all read each other's minds.
Go on.
Anyway, I'll start there. We got up by 51 points. Jack Ginnivan had a hot start, and I was getting a little bit worried in that match, but went back and watched the highlights just before the pod today, fellas, and the connection, the ball flow, like Paddy Lipinski was in the right spot at the right time. Bobby Hill was setting up goal assists and got on the end of one himself. Jamie Elliott was on fire and kicked 4 to checkers. I think that game most closely resembled the Adelaide win of all of the wins I could remember across the season. And there's just something about Bobby not being in the team that I felt his absence so much, even though he only had the 14 disposals and a goal in that round 12 match against the Hawks. It was just the way he gets the crowd up, his presence. He set up Jamie with the first one. And God, I'm looking forward to having that X Factor back next season.
Yeah, it was the best we had played all year by far. And I think, and we spoke about it at the time, but the fact that it was against this Hawks side that have had our measure so many times.
There's a big build up to Saturday night.
I think we won that game and we were 10-2 at that point on top of the ladder. And it was probably the peak of our season in retrospect.
And it still felt like at the time, though, that we still had
Yeah.
plenty of improvement to go. I think I remember saying on the pod that week that, you know, we were going to explode from this because we
Yeah.
looked so clinical, so connected, and we weren't cleaning up all aspects of our game. But yeah, Luke, did you have anything to add to that Hawthorn game?
No, well, that's why I picked that game as the best win of the year, because it did feel like, one, it was probably the most memorable, but two, just it was the best we did play across the whole season for a 4-quarter performance. The build up to the game, the Hawks, you know, they're the up and coming best thing, and we were the best in it at that point, and to absolutely destroy them the way we did, we all come in here thinking, you know, flag pies, lids off, like this is it, and it kind of fell off a cliff after that. But that for me was the best win of this year.
And let's be honest, so the LA qualifying final, I think, is clearly the number one, and I think it's great to sort of highlight.
It's
this
a final,
home and away
I mean-
game, but yes, it's a final. Our only finals win, unfortunately, this year. But Jacko,
Yeah, I tried going a little bit different, and I think the reason why this game resonated with me is because I went along to it by myself. First time I've been to the footy by myself. It was Brisbane away over the Easter period, and then, like, on reflection, it sort of came in at an early part in the season when we weren't sure what Collingwood we were going to get for season 2025. You know, obviously got walloped in round 0 against the Giants, did a number on Port Adelaide, and had a few sort of here and there performances leading into this game. And Brisbane were at the time, and you know, have eventually gone on to win the flag in the manner that they had. But they were, I think they were 6-0 or something. They hadn't lost a game going into it. Defending premiership team, and we went up there and put on an absolute clinic. Nick Dacos put on an absolute clinic. I can remember being sort of very excited and very embarrassed sitting there at the Gabba by myself, celebrating that Nick Dacos goal, which of course came from the rundown against Dane Zorko. It was just a really, really good night at the footy. I think it was a night, I remember calling mates after and saying, like, you know, this is an affirmation that we are a bloody good side and we can compete in this thing this year. And of course, you know, we almost did. We were one game short of the penultimate game of the year. So really fun away trip by myself, and that's what resonated with me.
very nice. Freo away was also an underrated victory considering the lack of resources we had coming into that game. Luke, your MVP. I know. I'm switching it up. I'm not. Everyone's got to have a go first.
MVP, I'm going to go Lockie Schultz.
Ooh,
Just because I did like your little in brackets, doesn't necessarily have to be the best player. Not saying he wasn't the best player, but for me, he was just someone, he could also fall into kind of, I guess, biggest improver across the year comparing to where he come from. But I just, for me, as a supporter, just really proud of how he did battle across particularly last season and then sort of moved into this season. And, you know, every single week, bar when he wasn't out there, but every single week he was out there, you just knew you were going to get the best out of Lockie Schultz. His pressure inside 50, kicking goals a bit more, you know, consistently without missing those important shots. So just loved the way he went about it and thought he was so important to our forward line, particularly with pieces all over the place at times. So loved his year and just, wanted to give him a bit of recognition for the year that he did have.
Great answer. Jack?
I went with Isaac Quainer.
Nice.
Spoke a lot about him this year, but I went with him for the reason of, you know, coming back from the year that he had last year after having an exceptional 2023 season. Everyone knows the story. Sort of came back muscled up and probably a little bit heavy and struggled to get into last season, as did many, but came back, went away, got a little bit leaner last summer, and it was Isaac Quainer of old. And the reason why I wanted to highlight him, I thought not only was he really vital when we were flying against Hawthorn and Brisbane and the like, but I thought as a club and as a team petered off towards the back end of the year, he still stood up and he was still being spoken about as our top 3 players, and that was reflected in the Copeland top 5 finishes you mentioned before, mate. So hats off for him for, you know, after a down 2024, losing, I believe, he lost the vice captaincy, but might have retained
Still in the
a
leadership group,
position, but it would have been, you know, a bit of a blow to him, you know, personally and, you know, as a sportsman. So to be able to come back and have the year that he did, I think was absolutely exceptional. And as my mate Liam says, he does not lose one-on-one. So shout out to IQ.
Love it.
Yeah, look, again, glad you raised that, Luke, about not necessarily need to be the best player. And on that note, like I did have DC down. I'm actually going to go Tommy Mitchell and completely left field. But I saw him put up a little video message of him overseas in Bali, I think, where he was just doing like a video reflection. And I really appreciated the fact that he took the time to recognise that despite being on the outer due to injury, and then he got a run at it and obviously wasn't producing the performances we needed in the midfield, and there was the whole Ned Long, Tom Mitchell discussion. But I watched some of the VFL matches, and I remember seeing him like at quarter time, just getting around the other boys, the younger players, helping them with their structure, like your Harry Di Mattias and these types are going to be the next wave. And I just really think that he can hold his head high and act like a winner despite not having played much footy in 2025. And of course, he's been invited to explore his options, and it's unlikely we'll see him in black and white stripes again, Nico, but I just reckon he behaved like an MVP and can really hold his head high as he potentially doesn't take part in another AFL program. So, Tommy Mitchell.
I absolutely love that answer.
That's great.
That's probably the best answer we've had. And I did watch a bit of that video that he put up as well. I just love how honest he has been, not just on that instance, but throughout the whole season, and being really open and admitting, like you said, the position he's in and understanding what that does look like for him going forward, and to still have that attitude as well.
It speaks volumes.
Yeah, absolutely. I went with Jamie Elliott. I mean, 60 goals at the twilight of his career, should have been an All-Australian, top 5 in the best and fairest. I mean, you could not ask for much more about Jamie Elliott. You wonder what his future looked like in black and white if he didn't have this type of season. And I think we just need to, we've already mentioned it quite a bit with his re-signing, so I won't go over too much old ground, but just the fact that he was able to have the influence he did and really keep us in games with some of his goal-kicking ability. I mean, came into a final series having not kicked more than 2 goals in the final and kicked 8 in 2 games. And it's a precursor to my best finals play, because I went with Jamie for that exact reason. His ability to not only impact the scoreboard but get others involved in the game, his contested marking, his pressure inside 50, all of that was just off the charts. And it was just a true testament to the way that he's gone about it throughout his entire career. And I thought, if you had told me that we were going to get that type of season out of Jamie at the start of the year, I would have laughed at you. So fully credited to Jamie. And again, nothing taking away from Nick, because he had another superb campaign. And I'm sure we all realistically would make him the MVP because he's had that type of year. But I'm glad we've all gone for some different avenues for that sort of answer, because they were our MVPs in different ways, shape and form. So absolutely love that. So yes, best finals player was Jamie. Any other different answers to that?
I thought, Jamie as well.
It was hard because we only did play the 2 finals, but I just wanted to shout out Geordie's first final.
Yep.
I thought he obviously didn't play as well in the prelim, but his first final was one of the reasons we did win that game of footy. And I feel like if he had his chance again, we might have got a better output from him in a prelim, or potentially the following week if we did make it. But just wanted it was a tough one, because obviously Elliott was great across the 2 games, but no one else really went bang bang.
Exactly.
It was probably Elliott or Quainer, I felt, were probably the only 2 consistent enough.
Across the 2, but then if you consider Geordie or even Darcy Moore in the first final, in terms of actual performances.
Definitely.
Like match-winning performances.
Definitely.
I also had Jamie Elliott. Nico, for what it's worth, in the prelim, wasn't able to come in here with you boys. I thought Rowan Steele's effort in the prelim to come on for Pendle so early in the game was amazing for a young fella. So, not the best finals player for me. That was Jamie, but still a great effort nonetheless.
I'll start with you again, Luke, because you sort of mentioned it. So was your biggest improver Lockie Schultz based off that, or did you have a different answer?
Honestly, it would be Schultz, but I threw Ned Long in there.
Yeah.
I just think recency bias, we probably didn't get the best kind of second half of the year out of him, but maybe expectations had skyrocketed based on his first half of the year. But I think we do forget how massively he shot onto the scene early on in this season. And I think, just need to give a bit of shout out for that, because we did have him on the podcast as well this year. But,
of course.
just kind of came out of nowhere. So if you're really looking at biggest improver, it has to be him.
He didn't miss a game.
And, he was
after he got picked.
So that's another...
Played a couple of sub roles and that was it.
Yeah, so shout out to Longy, but Shooter definitely as well.
Again, I think he won the award at the BNF for best most improved player. So unequivocally...
Gavin Brown Award.
Wins that award, but just to go a little bit different... even though he only played the 1 AFL game, I'm looking at, I guess, our Brodie Myercheck replacement in Charlie West. And yes, he had played most of his footy at VFL level, so I'm fully aware there's a bit of a asterisk over my response here, but I just felt like he was kicking on average, I think, 4 goals a game in the VFL. Came and got the foot injury after the West Coast game,
the
kicked
first
his
game,
first
yeah.
goal. But I'm just so excited by what's to come for him, and I really feel like strategically the Brody Myercheck departure makes way for Charlie West next season. So I might be going a little bit early, and yes, he's going to hopefully get more game time and improve next season, fellas. But I just think he's just like that natural key forward mould that is not too dissimilar from Myercheck and has a spot waiting in the wings.
And the benefit of playing a full year in the reserves and not rushing him into the ones, not having him as a necessity now, which we might actually be looking to him for the next few years with Myercheck's departure. I've gone a bit left field for this response, Nico. I've given it to Steele Sidebottom. So I think, like, obviously we all know, and we're not silly here as Collingwood supporters. We know that when Steele retires, he's going to be, remembered as one of the greats, if not the greatest Collingwood player of all time, right alongside Pendles and Bucks. So we all know that, but quite often is the case, especially in the last I feel 3 years. A lot of people have retired him, and I'm included in that conversation. I think at the back end of last year, with our ageing list and our lack of pace, we were all looking at Steele Sidebottom and wondering, how he was going to get better or how he was going to improve this side. And his ability to come out this year looks so strong, looks so quick and sharp as he has ever. And his, 14-year career is just unbelievable. So shout out to Steele Sidebottom for his ability to have a down year last year, a little bit like Isaac Quainer, and revitalise himself at his age as well, which is just ridiculous. He's not to be not noted to be a bull or be a pillar of strength, to go away and clearly work on that in the off season. Would love to know. I've mentioned it a few times, Nico. Yeah. Would love to know whatever he got up to over the off season to build up that strength. But his season, especially, we forget like that first 12 weeks when he
best player,
Anzac Day medal. There was genuine conversations around whether or not Steele Sidebottom could win the Brownlow medal at that stage. So, shout out to Steele. And, that just goes to show that people like me should just shut up and keep his name out of our mouths.
So I had the same deal, because in a similar vein to Jamie, who could have expected to have seen a season like we did from Steele Sidebottom, albeit, yes, he did drop off a little bit towards the back end. But, I mean, I look at some of those crucial moments. You talked about Anzac Day. I look at the Bulldogs game, how he won it off his own boot for us, really. And just those little examples of his ability to influence matches. The Sydney game's another one that I felt he was really important in as well.
Qualifying final, his ability
in its own right.
So the Hawks game.
Just the fact that, it was nice to see him go back to his roots a little bit and hit the scoreboard. So I think the most goals he's kicked in a season since 2017. So just goes to show that he's still got a little bit of that in him.
It's ridiculous. It's just crazy to think at his age that he's doing that.
And, it's a bit biased because he's my favourite player of all time, Steele Sidebottom. But, I'm just so stoked to see that he was able to impact us the way he did, and he's got at least another year of it in black and white.
Has he gone past Didac?
He has. Yep. Yeah,
you've said this a bit this season, maybe even last season. I just like that. Just need to fact
glad
check
you remembered,
because at the start, I think in our first episode, we were like, "Who's your favourite player?"
Real icebreaker.
Jack was probably listening. And I reckon you said Dids.
Yeah, it's Dids, and it was Dids until the conclusion of the 23 grand final.
Yeah, okay.
He's my background.
I was going to...
Him and Dakes.
But I think when we started, you had Dids as your...
Dids was, no. He's still very well...
Silver medalist.
Yeah, he's still an unbelievable player in my eyes, Dids. Yeah. But yes, still
just for the record.
Yes, you hear that. All right, I asked you boys to rank our recruits from 1 to 3, those being, of course, Houston, Membry and Perryman. I want to see where you landed.
Yeah, I really had been tossing and turning about Membry or Perryman for my first selection, but I just thought that the way that Perryman he played every game of the season, I reckon, he did. Pez. And he came in and probably had been talked about in his trade conversations about midfield time, but I feel like he was just given a real dour defender role. And I just watched some of his positioning throughout the season, and even though he's not a big guy, like technically he's just an unbelievable defender and just an excellent footballer. So I've gone with Harry Perryman coming 5th in the Copeland as well. I think it's an outstanding achievement. Given he was playing a role that was very much team oriented, not about getting him the ball, but putting his teammates in better positions and sacrificing his game. Then Membry, and then unfortunately there's a bit of length between Membry and Dan Houston. I'll be keen to hear any other opinions.
I assume we've all gone the same.
Yeah, same as you. I think Perryman top 5 finish in the Copeland justifies him being the best recruit of the year. I didn't know he played every game, so that's another tick. But just playing a role that you don't walk away every week and go, damn, he was the best player. But across the season, we're going, wow.
In the interest of being, a contrarian, Nico, I had Membry 1 just as well. Impossible to split the two, but by virtue of the fact that I looked at both of them executed their role this year to absolute perfection. They both just did their job. And the reason why I gave Timmy Membry the 1 spot was because came over, just St Kilda let him walk. So we were ready for him to probably retire. We got him for nothing. He was able to come in and just be able to have the impact and kick as many goals as he did at his age. I thought was a really big effort and really exceptional. So fingers crossed, we're going to need him again next year. So if we can have another good summer, that'd be awesome.
Well, I've been working trade radio in the mornings on SEN, and Kane Corns made some comments about Harry Perryman last week, suggesting that he hasn't got a role in his team and that more or less should get rid of him. So it was nice to see his face this morning when we mentioned to him that he actually finished 5th in the Copeland Trophy. So that was a little
he also put Membry down as well.
He's just being sensational.
But it was the fact with Membry, the expectations weren't for him to come in and kick 100 goals and.
Yeah, 3rd leading goal kicker.
Which is why, he did. So I agree with what you're saying as well. He did everything we expected, but more. Honestly.
32 goals this year.
And his work rate, you see him, especially at games at the G when he just work on from one side of the ground to the other, unrewarded, and then go back, and it's just his attitude just to keep presenting.
Ground level,
amazing,
very good ground level.
At the same time, that's why Houston would be at 3 for all of us, is because of the expectation we had on him. He didn't have an awful season, and he did find his way certain games of the season, but just based on what we expected and what we've seen previously in his role within this side.
Especially after his debut. I said at the time it was one of the best Collingwood debuts I'd seen in a while. So especially after that performance, you felt like, hey, we've got a really strong player on it. It
felt like we were so close at times to getting it, and then you're like, oh, here we go, and then it just it was like he kept getting pulled back, pulled out of the action, or
I don't know what that was, but for me, it's a segue to the next question around most disappointing player. And I know it's a very unfair thing to perhaps comment on if you look at a new role, high expectations, big money coming across as an All-Australian and a best and fairest winner at Port, I believe. But there was just the fact that too often throughout this season, his one wood is his kicking. We all know that. He was coming across to provide us with better ball use sort of across the defensive line and potentially moving the ball forward as he played on the wing as well, Nico. But I just too many balls on the full. Like, I'm sorry, just for a player of that caliber who's renowned for being able to absolutely dart it and hit targets, I just didn't feel like, even with Josh Dacos perhaps being our preferred quarterback, if we could use that terminology, that Dan Houston rose to the occasion in big games enough.
But even his decision-making, Marcus, I can cop sometimes the inefficiency, but the decision-making.
Giving away 50-metre penalties in crucial moments in big matches. Like, there's a string of events there.
He's my most disappointing as well, Nico. And I understand he's clearly a great player. He's All-Australian at Port Adelaide, comes over, and I think a lot of people have made comparisons to his first year with Lachie Schultz in terms of coming in from a team where you're the man. Lachie Schultz was the man in the forward line. He was the man in the back line, and having to assimilate into a very different system with similar players and having to try and find your feet in there. I understand that's very hard, but I think the thing that separated Shooter and why I was so confident that he would be able to come out and have the year that he did this year was his attitude on field. I just feel like we didn't get enough of that from Dan Houston this year. You've just mentioned it there, the bumps off the ball, the general sort of, I'm probably nervous in saying this, but the general kind of lazy look that he's got about himself. There wasn't a lot of times where I could say that Dan Houston attacked a contest at 110 miles an hour like a Lachie Schultz would have. We didn't get, like, if anything, although we didn't get the class and the skill and all that on show, it also felt like we weren't getting maximal effort out of him either, as long with the suspensions and the stupid 50-metre penalties given away. So for mine, he's the most disappointing, and for mine, he's the biggest one I'll be watching for next year, just to have a big lift, not only to try and involve himself more within our system, but just lift your intensity a bit.
So just before we move on, so you said you had confidence in Lachie changing his tune a year after his first season at the club. do you not have the same confidence in Dan?
No, because I saw Shooter, obviously, as I reiterate my point, like I saw Shooter not fit into a system, but I saw Shooter try his butt off. Every time he stepped over the white line for us, he was out there running around like a headless chook. And I don't feel like looking at Dan Houston that I see enough of that. And I've been having conversations with mates about this and having arguments whether we've ruined Dan Houston or Dan Houston's just not sort of lifting to our expectations. And I think it's the latter. I think, there's not an attitude problem. That's way too far down the track. But it seems like he drops his head too fast. He just loses his head within games too often in too many different facets of the game. So I'm disappointed by his year, but have faith. He's a very good footballer. He's an All-Australian for a reason, and he can find his feet in this side. We saw it, as you said, mate. That first game against Port Adelaide, it looked $1 million. He looked like a bit of a missing piece that we were going to get in this season, and not to be the way it panned out. So a big off season for Dan Houston, and hopefully he can come out firing next year.
Yeah, see, I think I'm confident that we get a different mental side of Dan Houston next year, and after a season that he's had, that he settles in a little bit more. Did you have Houston as well?
I actually had McStay.
So did I.
Yeah.
I actually found it tough to find one. And I will be honest, I actually had Tom Mitchell there until you spoke on him. And
what's different?
They're different. Yeah, it was more not disappointing, but like the fall off did come very quickly, and we're probably not going to see him out there again. So, but credit to him for the positive attitude and everything he does do for the VFL program, and the next guys coming through. So I had to quickly move away from him because that was lovely to hear. But yeah, Dan McStay, just again another big recruit that we've seen moments and we've just gone, this is why we got him. And then this season, this was the year probably after sort of settling in the past couple of years, and we probably got less out of him than what we even expected at a bare minimum point of view. And to get dropped for finals was a massive indicament of that, and sort of a letdown to finish the season. So don't know where he sits going into next season.
Oh, he's going to have to do some work next year.
Maybe he does need to be the main guy and it all has to sit on him, but I just don't know if he has it in him. The reason he didn't get picked was he wouldn't go up and mark the footy.
I'm surprised you didn't have him.
Run at the footy, Dan.
That's what a key forward is supposed to do, and we've seen him do it at big moments. And again, another piece that if he was clicking, we're probably nearly there on the final day in September.
This feeds to the disappointment that we have as supporters, I feel, because it's not like we're not sitting here going, they might be capable of it, or we've seen little things. We know these blokes are capable of tearing games apart and being some of the best players in the competition. So when they have years like they do, that's where the frustration comes from.
So when I see the word disappointing, that's why my mind did go to Dan, because to end the year not being in your best 23 in a deep finals campaign.
Big money.
Yeah, and I think that says a lot about where he's at. So he's going to have to fill some of that hole that Myercheck will leave next year. And I said at the start of the season, I said this was the season for Dan McStay. 23, very injury interrupted, understand. 24, similar sort of conversation, didn't come back till later in the year. And of course, on field, we weren't playing that great football either. This was the season for mine that he had to come and perform, and he just didn't.
And it hurts to say this for him, but you've not made the grand final side for either Collingwood or Brizzy in 2023. Your old team then goes on to it in 2024 and 2025. Like, ouch. And you're not there to contend for it in 2025 either. So I've had reservations about Dan's some of his capacity above the shoulders at times in matches. And I know this year he was played in roles that were, you're trying to play that swingman utility role, which was pretty useless, quite frankly. So I don't think some of the coaching decisions helped his cause, but at the end of the day, you're 6'5", you weigh 100 kilos, throw your weight around, big fella. I can see Jack nodding, but
mate, so much.
And that frustrated.
We were all in the Gold Coast, us three boys. That inexcusable miss, those little moments within seasons as well. That could, sort of change the momentum. Of our
he honestly kicks that goal, and we it's a completely.
We win the flag, Luke.
It's just like it could be a completely different season for us and for him, because it's just those little moments. And it was the same for Shooter last year. Wasn't as high as stakes, but just those little moments when you're struggling and you get a shot from 15 metres out in front of goal, you miss it and you're already here, you're down here all of a sudden, and it's very hard to get back.
At least Shooter kicked that goal against Brisbane in 24.
Yes,
so he had that.
But and that's when we're talking about Shooter comparing with Houston. I think for Shooter, it was his last. Obviously, he every week we knew what we're getting out of him, but it was probably the last 6 weeks of that 24 season. We were like, started to see this is why we picked him up. This is what we wanted out of him, and then it kind of just flowed into this season for him. So,
all right. So the final question I had for you boys was an early 2026 prediction. So could go to all different lengths here. I'm wondering where you landed. So I will start with you this time, Mark.
Yeah, I've gone with us finishing in 7th position next season. I think that we are. This really was the season for me where if we're going to have one last crack at it with this list without imminent departures, that we were going to have to do it. And I know that like the likes of Will Hoskin-Elliott and Tom Mitchell, who were successful in that 2023 campaign, really their bodies let them down and they were unable to play ones. And now with Brody Myercheck also departing, Coxie, I don't know if we're going to see him again in black and white stripes. So I just feel like there's change on the horizon, and that's very much needed. I feel like the legacy leaders of the club in Steele, Pendles, Howie, and now Jamie Elliott are probably getting that preference to finish out their careers potentially together. Jamie will obviously go on, but could be a big set of departures at the end of next season, depending on how things go. And I just think with a lot of young guys coming through and needing to fill some of those key pillars, particularly in the forward line, that whenever there's change of a list, it's very hard to maintain that success, which is why you have to go full credit to the Lions and even the Cats, the way they're constantly able to replenish.
Yeah.
We don't have a huge amount of draft capital, as always seems to be the case, trading away future first rounders. And I just think that we're just going to have to be patient over the next few seasons before we see the next evolution, as one of you fellas put before, of Craig McRae's tenure as coach. So bit of sad news there, but I still think we are a top 8 side.
Well, in my notes, I wrote flags. So, I probably agree with what you're saying.
Go on. Why are we winning the flag? I want to know why that's happening.
I just think we're going to win it every year. So, realistically, I don't think. I think I agree with what you're saying. It's a real kind of changing of the guard, sort of that 20 from 22 onwards squad is kind of disbanding a bit now, and it is sad because 23 premiership side and a lot of those guys are falling off, retiring, and will be all playing their last seasons probably next season. So it is a real changing. It is exciting though as a supporter. I think the expectation might not be to win the flag, but it's to still compete whilst rejuvenating at the same time and still have those moments where you go, we're not completely falling off a cliff like some people think. So I'd be happy with that sort of 6th to 8th finish. Obviously, finals is still an expectation of this list, no matter what happens across the trade and free agency period and the draft. But I think we're a little off competing for the flag, but you never know.
Okay. I shouldn't be allowed to speak when it comes to this stuff, Nico. I'm horrible. I gave us no chance coming into this season to even make
find out in a minute.
Finals. I'm horrible at predicting stuff. But look, in the spirit of trying to, at least, I think the boys have nailed it there. It feels like this is going to be a massive change in the guard. I feel like next year we're going to have a very similar year to 2024. Although we didn't make finals that year, we were still probably a final side, finishing percentage out of top 8.
Injuries.
Injuries and the like, and just probably just not getting a jump on that. We got a jump on that season in terms of the fact we started 0-3, I think it was. But to speak to the boys' points, I think next year is going to be a really good chance for us as Collingwood Sports to celebrate some greats of our club, and it probably will be like a bit like 2024 was in that getting Pendles to his 400th. I think next year will be a little bit the same, getting into the milestone game and breaking the AFL VFL record, and then of course farewelling two greats of our game. I'd be shocked if Steele and Pendles went further than next year. Shocked is probably not the right word, because I'm shocked that they're still going around and having the impact they are these days. But maybe a bit of a farewell tour in season 2026 for those boys, Nico, and fingers crossed. It'd even be good for the boys coming through. The Charlie West of the world and Harry Dimatiz, if they're able to get into this side and maybe play in an elimination final at the MCG in front of 90,000 Collingwood supporters. All that experience is worth its weight in gold. So temporary expectations a little bit in terms of being able to compete for the ultimate prize, but fully expect that we'll be around that sort of 6th to 10th mark. And as far as a bold prediction is concerned, I had Bobby's back in a big way. I hope a big summer for Bobby Hill. Obviously, I don't want to speak too much to the sort of controversies that he's got himself into over the last 3 to 4 months, but I think he's going to go away, have a huge summer, and hopefully we'll maybe could even have another Norm around his neck this time next year. That'd be really, really nice, but I know that's probably a bit of a stretch.
You guys have nailed it. All the notes I had about what the changing of the car looked like for next year I had here, but I said 6th position we would finish. Hopefully we get a home final and then we can go on from there. But you're right. I think it's going to be a very intriguing campaign. I always look at where we do sit in comparison to other clubs coming into next year. Again, I just feel like there's going to be so many teams on the improve, particularly with how this trade period seems to be unfolding. There's a lot of clubs that are going to be right up there in 2026, and I just don't know if we have what it takes to stay with them throughout the whole course of the season. I just hope we can blood a lot of youth. And one of the notes I said in terms of a bold call like you, Jack, I said that Will Park would be best 23 by the end of next year. I've seen a lot from him already that I like. No, he didn't get many games, and it just felt like that he's just someone that can really stick with his side next year. So hopefully that is the case. A couple of things before we do wrap up. Jack and I were part of the first episode of season 7, and we thought we'd go through some.
You
of
don't want a bold prediction from me and Lukey.
I thought you would have given it as part of yours, but go on.
I think this is a really important thing to discuss. Nick Dacos for captain in season 2026.
I don't mind it.
What do we think while Pendles is still around?
Well, it could be really important because I know there's a lot to play out in this facet, but if I've heard Tassie, if they get a team, the offer for Nick is like a ridiculous sign-on bonus, $2 million a year and the captaincy. So if you lock him into a captaincy leadership position, he might sort of feel bound.
It means nothing anymore.
I was going to say at this point, it means sweet.
True, but still, no, that might be really
leaving. I just think while Pendles is still around, could that be invaluable to have Pendles and Darcy more at your disposal to assist with what we will likely see as our next captain?
I think we spoke on it at some point this year, but obviously Darcy's season wasn't incredible, and we thought potentially taking that captaincy off him could benefit him, and that might be
what benefited Pendles.
Yeah, so to take that away from him, not putting him down, but to give Nick the chance, which will in turn give Das a chance to get back to just playing football.
Das is 30 next year, I think, as well.
I think we forget how Das has got on a bit. It feels like he debuted. It feels
just because of his injuries, he missed seasons.
It just feels like he only debuted last year. He's still just a young kid. So I think I'm all for that as well. But yeah, I'm not sure if that's
to answer your question. I think Das will have next year as captain. And then I understand the Pendles factor. I think Nick's one of those players that doesn't necessarily need that extra support from Pendles. As important as it is, I think he's already absorbed so much from him in his early career as it is that there's no major benefit to him overshadowing him in that role in the near future. So whether Pendles is there or not, I think Nick's ready to take it now regardless. So realistically, I think Das gets one more crack at it. I don't know if he's out of contract end of next year, but that might have something to do with how that plays out.
It's just Das has obviously got his finger in so many different pies, no pun intended, outside of footy, and he's also the president of the Players Association. Yeah. So how many things can he do on top of and still perform at the level? I know he did it in 2023, but was 2024 good enough? I don't know.
It also, just to go back to Nick Dacos for a moment, Nico couldn't do his Brownlow efforts any danger going in there every week to do the coin toss just to remind the umpires that he's around and that he's a player on the field. So that could, if we're looking for individual awards instead of the ultimate prize,
give him the captaincy so he can win the Brownlow.
So he can win the Brownlow.
It sounds like he needs orange hair more than he needs the captaincy at this point. I assumed your bold prediction was the flag, Lukey, unless you had anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah, flag.
Okay.
I honestly didn't think about a bold prediction, but I do like that one. I do like your one. What did you
Will
have?
Parker.
Will Parker, that's a good shout as well. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Jump on our bandwagon, that's fine. So as I was saying, Jack and I were part of the first episode this year, and we thought we'd put some predictions together. Oh boy, these are there's some interesting ones here. So I won't dwell on them too long. It's probably a good reason for both of us. So ladder position, we actually finished 4th, as we know. Jack, you said 3rd, which is a pretty good effort, and I said 5th. So not too bad, I would have thought.
Between you,
averages out.
Amongst friendship circles, I gave no chance to him 8.
So Copeland, we know that Darcy Cameron won. We both said Dacos, but Jack said that Darcy Cameron would be the surprise packet. So I'll give you that. Very good. I said Bobby Hill would be the surprise packet. It's not quite.
It was a surprise packet.
Wow. Well, that segues perfectly to leading goal kicker, which, of course, Jamie Elliott won. Jack said Bobby Hill would win the leading goal kicker award this year, and I said that Dan McStay would win the leading goal kicker award this year. So we're going real well. Who is it a big year for? Jack, you said it was the captain, Darcy Moore. I said Lockie Schultz and Ed Allen. I said both names, so I'm going to give myself half a point.
One best young player.
Yes,
award
somehow.
Ed Allen. I was like, it's obviously Nick, but like you can't get to him again. So
correct. Record after 6 games. So it was actually 5-1. We both said 4-2, which I don't think is too far off. I thought we were okay. And then our bold calls. So Jack said that if Nick wins a Brownlow, Collingwood win the flag. That was your bold call.
I wasn't far off.
Second both times, but yeah, that's okay. Mine was shocking in the end. I said that for the first time since 2018, we would have 6 or more players kick 25 goals or more. We had 3. Elliott, Mychek and Membry.
You would have been one off had Bobby played the whole season, I reckon.
Well, maybe so, but even so, McStay wasn't anywhere near it. Schultz didn't kick that many goals. A few others, but in reality, I was too engrossed with the fact that we had Mychek, Membry, McStay kicking goals for fun against Richmond in the preseason. I thought, they'll translate throughout the season. They'll work well.
That's not as bad as what I thought it would be.
I agree.
The way we were pumping that up sort of off air and a little bit of the leading into
scared Jack.
I was really worried about what I just dumped way back in March.
To be honest, the leading goal kick is the only one we really were far off on. Everyone else was pretty good. So I'm looking forward to doing that again next year.
Yeah.
A couple other tidbits before we wrap up. So we mentioned Tom Mitchell before, but we didn't get a chance to touch on Mason Cox because it does look like we won't be offering him a contract next year. That's not 100% confirmed, by the way. There is still a glimmer of hope that we will turn around and offer him a contract, albeit if we do, it would be likely only 1 year and likely on quite low money. Cox does want to play on by reports. He does want to stay at Collingwood by all reports, but I'm not really sure if there's any other clubs sort of circling him at the moment. I've heard Essendon, although they don't need anyone they can get at this point, so maybe they will go down that path.
Specialist.
Have we have we seen the last of Mason at Collingwood?
I think we haven't. If he's going to accept a very, very low salary, like almost a rookie grade salary, to essentially be of no real deficit to what we might be offering other guys who are looking for every dollar they can for their contract. And also because if you think about Darcy Cameron and then if we play Dan McStay in a ruck capacity next year, I don't know, with Checkers leaving, if that'll happen, he'll be more forward. But then you've got Oscar Steen, who I think is waiting in the wings and ready to have a crack at the senior level. And then big Ilaru Smith, of course, Nico. So like there's not a lot of ruck stocks is what I'm trying to say. Obviously Bill Frampton can go in there, prefer him as a defender.
So just out of depth.
Yeah, exactly right. If Coxie plays 10 games at the senior level next season, is that the worst thing?
Well, also, we saw with Aiden Begg, who's probably a bit of a forgotten name now, but how valuable experience is within ruck stocks as well. You know, we've got Ilaru Smith and all the big boys coming through, Charlie West as well. But, you know, if a crisis happens and we lose Darcy Cameron and the like, someone having the value of having Mason Cox's experience in this team is, going to be huge.
Yeah, I think he hangs around for a year. Yeah. I think we give him the option if there is an offer out there that financially is going to be better for him. He's going to get more playing time. I think the club are open to helping him out as well. But if, there's nothing really there, then all right, you can stay here on, something very minimal.
With the Elliott and Mycheck news sort of done and dusted, we won't be that busy really in the trade period, I would have thought. So Jacob Blight and Jack Buller are the two names that have sort of popped around that have been linked to Collingwood. I think Jack Buller's all but requested a trade to go to the Pies.
Wasn't Clayton Oliver?
Well, if you let me finish, I was about to say that as of the last 12, 24 hours, Clayton Oliver has apparently garnered the interest of Collingwood. Now, there's a lot there. They are willing to pay a lot of his salary. We know what he's capable of at his best. I'm seeing a lot of heads shaken, not nodded by you two. No chance you would consider him?
No. Look, culturally, I mean, I just don't think, just with Bobby and what's going to be required to get him back to his best in terms of where our priorities are. What's our draft hand and who are we trading to get a Clayton Oliver deal done, even if a bit like with the Brodie Grundy stuff, we end up having to be on the receiving end this time of a huge deal. I think it's on 1.3
something
a
like
year
that.
Or something. So don't get me wrong, if you end up paying like 6-7 a year and the D's are paying the rest, there's like a good amount of value in that, but it's just the off-field stuff. I feel like he's probably getting towards a point of his career where maybe some of his off-field is as important as his on-field, and I just don't know if he's got that hunger to go and try and be part of another playing group that wants to contend, and if Collingwood is the best fit for him at this point in his career, I just don't see it.
I feel like we don't have the knack like a Geelong does to turn these sort of off-field bow boys into tried and tested. They're just amazing what they do. Jack Martin, who given the boot by Carlton last year, and Tyson Stengel and the Bailey Smith. The list goes on and on. And I don't feel like we historically, at least, have been a club that's been able to do that with players like Clayton Oliver. Nick, I used to go to the footy with Mount Franklin bottles of water, and Adam Treloar, every time he let go of the footy, that thing used to get smashed. Now, the amount of Mount Franklin bottles that have been getting smashed has decreased since his departure. And I dare say if we pick up someone like a Clayton Oliver, there'll be a lot more Mount Franklin water bottles getting crushed. So stay away. I'm not interested in players like him who just get the ball and hack it forward. They're just waste of space, and he can continue collecting 1.3 at Melbourne and stay away from my footy club.
So clearly I hit a nerve.
If I'm a soft plastic, I'm rooting for Clayton Oliver to not land at the Pies next year.
Yeah, for sure. Right? Even if you're just like the event staff of the MCG cleaning up in and around the Collingwood members section, Nico, there'll be a lot more sort of, it's like stepping on, plastic sea of Mount Franklin water bottles.
I'm very surprised how quickly you two have dismissed him. I'm not completely against.
I think he fixes a lot of issues inside
I think
our midfield.
What do you have to give to get when we don't have much to give?
So this is the thing. So yes, obviously we do not have a strong draft hand or the capital to go and get Clayton Oliver. In saying that, you look at a Treloar example, and let's not compare apples and oranges here, but Melbourne more or less want to get him off the list and are willing to pay a significant amount.
That's a cultural decision.
They're not in a position to bargain.
I understand that, but do you not think that potentially by having him at Collingwood, our culture will change him slightly, or he might have a motivational aspect now to his game, or a point to prove as such by him then coming to a club that is still contending for a flag? I'm not saying that it's right or wrong.
Are we though?
Yeah,
we've got to ask that question of ourselves. Are we still contending? That's like if we were this time last year looking to bring a Clayton Oliver on board, I think I'm much more in the boat of, no, he can help us win a flag. Let's get him across.
Like now.
He's a tried and tested AFL player, been there before, been on the big stage, performed, all the rest of it. But I think we've got to ask ourselves the question, what phase are we at in our development? How far within the window are we? Of course, we still think we could do the miraculous thing next year, compete in finals, and who knows what can happen. But I think the question is more incumbent on us to look at ourselves and go, all right, are we a premiership contender? If they think we are, then maybe someone like a Clayton Oliver, like you boys have just mentioned, could bolster our stocks a little bit and go in and get the hard ball and kick it to no one. But the point I make is I think I feel like now as a Collingwood supporter, and again I highlighted before my inability to be right in these situations time and time again, but I feel like we're probably not within that window anymore.
I just worry about that midfield in the near future, that's all. And he's only 28, but I understand both sides of the argument. I wouldn't be disappointed if we didn't get him. I wouldn't be upset if we did get him. That's where I'll leave it for now. But I'll be very curious. To be honest and realistically, I don't think we're going to get him anyway. I think he's going to GWS, and I think that will be the end of it.
What about track? What happened?
He's off to the Gold Coast. He's requested to go to the Gold Coast, so that's done and dusted. Which I'm very surprised about, but clearly he wanted to get out of
big crowds. He's gone to the...
Geez, they're going to be scary next year, though, Gold Coast.
They will be very scary.
Very
but
scary
They'll be
next year.
playing in front of 25 people. So
Imagine that midfield: Rao,
General,
Anderson,
yeah, mate.
Petrarca, and Took Miller. Like,
just quickly, I just remembered before, but the last episode we done, we gave our Brownlow predictions. We all said Nick. I think who was here? You.
Oh, you're tooting the horn.
just the three of us.
You
yeah.
said Noah Anderson. And I said
We both said no, Anderson.
I was thinking Noah Anderson, but I said, Matt Rowell, but I don't know how many votes they're going to steal. Do you know how annoyed I was when I seen Matt Rowell did win it?
You
Because
didn't put anything on.
I had
Gamble
nothing. Gamble responsibility. I had absolutely zero on him to win it, and he was paying very well apparently. But I did say it on the podcast.
All right, we'll get the tape back again. And then last note on my agenda before we wrap up, not taking Tom McGowan in the draft. I thought that was a little bit of a surprise, just given the fact that he had been highly touted at times. Now, I'm not going to sit here and, spruik and pretend to know what he's going to be like as a footballer. Some people said he's a top 5 pick. Some people said he's not even worth a selection in the draft. Gave him some opportunities at VFL level and, had a pretty solid season with the Western Jets, but obviously doesn't look like he's up to it.
Yeah, he's going to take some time to develop physically if he does come into the side, Nico. It is a surprise, and I guess it suggests to me that maybe there isn't a whole lot of interest otherwise. I think if Collingwood wanted a famous name on the list that we would have snapped him up, but clearly there must be little, I would have thought, less interest rather than more if he's going to slide and we're going to pick him up with pick 60-something in the draft, in the national draft. Or we need those points for other priorities. I know we've got some next generation academy players that we need to prioritise who will likely go higher, and perhaps that's where we need the points to be. So it is an intriguing one. Obviously, the point system, I believe they're changing the rules for father-sons in the coming years. Who knows?
Don't ask me what it is.
But with a famous name like Mickey McGuan, I would have thought we would have matched.
Yeah, I've got nothing to add. I've got no
Obviously
idea.
not that.
Regardless
No, I
of
just-
Tom McGowan.
I think I just seen there were people saying he's a top 5 pick, blah blah blah.
Yes.
Again, from people, do they even?
We're not going to
know-
profess to know.
Do they even know what they're talking about? And the fact that if the interest isn't there, why waste a potential pick when we may be able to just rookie him and still have him anyway? So
What I've heard anyway is that it's a pretty weak draft and it's going to be very compromised anyway with a lot of father, son and academy picks this year. So maybe it's not something the Pies are willing to really put all their eggs into.
What do we think of the father-son thing? Obviously, it feels like all the clubs that are kicking up a fuss about it, all their champions keep having daughters. So it's not really like, Collingwood, the Bulldogs and everyone else sort of cops a bit of flack, but it's sort of one of those sort of luck of the draw things.
Yes.
Are you in favour of it, you boys, of the father-son, or do you think, as you just said, Nico, it compromises the draft?
I mean, I like the romanticism of it. And let's be honest, how many of those father-sons really do become, let's say, generational talents or ones that end up playing 200, 300 games and, win Brownlows? I mean, obviously Nick's looking at an exception. Sam Darcy's one of those that look like might be heading down that path. But there's been plenty of father-son picks that haven't gone down an illustrious AFL career path and have been delisted sometimes without even playing a game. So.
Yeah, it happens. It definitely happens. So, yeah, it's an intriguing one, but I just reckon Tassie coming in, just got to be very careful with how we burn those picks or moves we make that then mean you're giving up another third rounder, but you might actually need that to secure up the draft in the next few years. So, yes.
All right. I think that's just about it, boys. What are our off-season plans? Have we got anything exciting coming up in the summer? No?
Nothing comes to mind. No.
just chilling.
Just chilling?
As you heard at the top of the show, Nico, I've got a teaching degree to get
you
through the
gotta
next
finish
7
that. Good
weeks,
luck
which
with
is
that.
where my mind is. And now I'm going to Europe to get involved with the soccer a little bit, maybe a little bit over there. Going to be freezing cold over the New Year period, so that should be good. But no, it's been a good year though this year supporting the Pies. I think even though we didn't make the grand final and stuff, if you had been sat here and having said that we made a home prelim final at the MCG, I think you would have given that a massive tick at the start of the year. And again, we've spoken about this before, but it just goes to at least my feelings as a Collins supporter, how lucky we are to be competing on the big stage year in, year out for the duration of my life at least. So very lucky.
Very good. I'm going to Japan if anyone cares. End of the month, a few weeks.
Sorry, man.
I'm very excited about it. That's okay.
How long are you going for?
Just 3 weeks. Just by myself. It'll be good fun. All right, so just a few thank yous that I had here before we do wrap up for the season. I don't feel like we'll be coming back on this year unless something unbelievable happens, because we like to give ourselves the time.
Signs of Collingwood.
Well, maybe we might have to get Jack, Clayton Oliver, and Adam Treloar in the room.
I want Jack's instant reaction after.
Actually, that's what we can do.
I can give it to you now.
And I had to get an Adam Treloar strain just to end the season. That's just
Sponsored by
As it
Mount.
started.
Sponsored by Mount Franklin Water.
On the sponsors, thank you for our sponsors this year. So Swish for the start of the year, and North Texas Devils, they've been a great support of us. They've been able to help keep us going. You can see that they've got their merch at the back. Good luck to them. They've got some important games coming up in October, so we'll be keeping a very close eye. Thanks to Backchat for the great studio this year, and to our producers. So Dan's been fantastic all year round. Very much appreciated putting up with our rubbish
After round
as
one.
an Essendon fan. Oh yeah, well after the fact that he didn't press record, and then also to Derek at the start of the year for the first few eps. He's also been fantastic there, and to Adrian and Rob as well for allowing us to do what we do across the year. Thank you to Collingwood. Not usually one that I have in the actual thank you list, but they've been a great support of our podcast this year, of course, highlighted by what they were able to do for us in episode 200. It'll be a pretty cool moment to look back on. And to Rowan Steele and Ned Long, who we had this year, and Shari Wellingham as well, a great guest. So for all those that have been involved, thank you. To the fans, to everyone that got involved this year, and no matter what segment it was, no matter in what way, again, if it was in person or online forums, it's been wonderful to have your support, and we've said it so many times, but this podcast just doesn't happen if we don't have the support and the fan network that we've been able to build over the last 7 years. So thank you. A special shout out to Serge again for his wonderful VFL reports. He has been terrific. We might get some audio from him next year, I reckon. Maybe do some voice memos.
Speak Serge.
Speak Serge. I don't mind it. So thank you for that, everyone that got involved in that segment and guessed the crowd. Yeah, again, in all of those, the support has been amazing. And to Marcus, Luke, and Jack, thank you again for being part of the ride in 2025. And I think we can look back and still have a positive outlook on what the season did bring to us, even though we weren't able to go all the way. It's been fun, and it's been great to be back on video format and just really, ride the highs and lows across the season.
Yeah, bloody awesome season, really, when we think about notching up 200 episodes not long ago, Nico, and 200 episodes for you, of course, right here from the beginning all the way through. And I don't know if we're a required podcast next season, but let's just hope that we are and assume that we'll be back in this studio come season 2026, fellas. No, but in all seriousness, we get the privilege of having people listen to us for some reason every week. And I'm just excited about the growth for this podcast and being on in an environment where we can have that interaction, and looking for more creative ways to engage the fans and hopefully more involvement with the club itself. Again, just echoing your sentiments, extremely grateful to Luke from Collingwood Media Team and some of the other officials down there that have been good enough to grant us access to some of the players and that sort of thing. So it goes a long way. I think it's a point of difference, and it's just growing in terms of the footy landscape, providing a sort of intermediary between the club and the players and the fans themselves. So an awesome year for the podcast, and bigger things coming, Lukey.
Yeah, well, according to the fans, we are a required podcast because every week they're messaging, when's the next episode dropping? So I think I've had a few messages come through since our last episode, just seeing if we are going to do a wrap-up episode. So it is coming. So shout out to the fans. Thank you to you boys. Echoing your thoughts, Nico, as well, with all the thanks to the club and sponsors, et cetera, et cetera. But it has been an incredible year to be back on video consistently. And I think most weeks we've had all of us here, or at least three of us. So it's been a good attendance rate this year, which speaks volumes to how much we all love it.
You'll hit your 150 next year.
Will I? If I get there. But it has been, obviously we all have different commitments and things like that, so it's not always possible to get here, but great that we do make it what it is. And I think when an episode does come out and one or two of us is missing, it does the fans do feel that. So it is nice when all four of us are here and we all bring something a little bit different. So thank you to you boys, and hopefully enjoy your breaks.
Yes.
We'll be back bigger and better next year. Jacko?
Yeah, just happy to be here, boys. It's, no,
We need a shirt with your head to say happy to be here.
We will
You know,
get on to that.
yeah, I can't add any more to what the boys just said. Maybe just a personal one. Thank you so much to anyone that sort of pops up at games. Or I know Nico, we got a fair bit of it when we went over to Adelaide. But as Marcus said, we come in, we sit in front of the cameras and the mics, and we yarn about footy for an hour and a half or so, and we forget that people actually listen and enjoy our podcast. And so to get that gratitude from them, makes me feel great about what we do here. And it's really exciting the year that we've had back in front of the cameras, back on all the socials, getting involved with the club. And it's a testament to you boys and the work that you've done over the last sort of 6 to 7 years, and long may it continue and long may it prosper. And hopefully this time next year we're sitting here talking about a 17th premiership and still carrying on like Muppets.
We'll change the flag, hopefully.
Yeah.
And we'll put a number 6 there this year. All right. Enjoy, boys. It's been nice having you along this year, and we'll see you back in March 2026. Don't you worry. We'll be right here ready to go. But until then, I've been Nicholas Sacco. You've been listening to or watching the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold. Our show wouldn't be possible in 2025 without the ongoing support of the North Texas Devils. They're led by a great Collingwood man in Peter Wood. And just like the Pies have been here, the North Texas Devils have been thriving over in the US, just coming off a Central Regional Championship. And now they're looking to go all the way in the Nationals in Arizona later this year. The Devils are still looking to recruit new and established players for the season, so if any of our listeners or viewers are heading to the States over the next couple of months, keen to get their Aussie rules fixed, the North Texas Devils are the team for you. Contact details can be found in our description no matter how you consume our podcast, or you can head to ntxdevils.com to learn more. So thanks again to the Devils for sponsoring the Pies Nation podcast in 2025.